Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our latest Zoom event with Bookworks of Albuquerque.
Hey,
We're
Tracy.
Albuquerque's. David, excited to see
I'm
lots of
recognizing
friends.
lots of people.
We're so pleased to be here today to share some new poetry with one of our favorite Albuquerque authors and comrades, David Meischen. We met a few years ago when he moved from Austin to Albuquerque with his partner,
Hey,
Scott
Carla.
Wigerman. And we've been to get to know these guys better over the years with their Wing Beats poetry workshop that some of you have probably attended on the second Tuesday of the month. That is, of course, all virtual now during the pandemic, as are all of Bookworks events. We just took a little mini break so I could go out into the woods with my wild children, and we're back. We have David today. Tomorrow we're hosting Stephen Schneider from Tucson for a book about mariachi. And then at 5 p.m., we're hosting Larry Ty, who has written an intriguing biography of Joseph McCarthy called Demagogue. That event starts at 5 o'clock. You can always RSVP to any Bookworks event by sending me an email at rsvp@bkwrks.com. And of course, you can shop from our website right now during the pandemic. We have curbside hours. We're still not opening our store for browsing yet. Our owners are really playing it safe in this regard. But please do continue to patronize our website and our curbside hours, which are being expanded to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday. If you go to our homepage, it has all of our current hours up there. Again, thank you for joining us. If you're just tuning in here, we've got David Meischen with a new poetry book called Anyone's Son. It's just out from Taos Press, and we are pleased to have with us today publisher Andrea Watson from that small press up north. So thank you for joining us. David is fairly new to Albuquerque, I'd say, but has definitely jumped right into the literary scene here with Wing Beats. He also just helped with an anthology called Weaving the Terrain. We had a very nice event for that at Bookworks. And in 2017, I believe, he won a Pushcart Prize for his essay called How to Shoot at Someone Who Outdrew You, which you can find in the Pushcart Anthology and also in Gettysburg Review, where David is published. He's been published in many other journals as well. But we are excited today to help him launch his new poetry collection, Anyone's Son. We'll have a reading and then we'll have a question and answer at the end. David, it's so nice to see your face. Congratulations on your new book.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm certifiably ADHD, so I was looking at all these faces. It's so cool to see these faces. I'm seeing names and faces that go back a number of years. My old friend Jack Francis, we've been friends for 50 years. I see that he's here, and a friend from the UT years, Marie Madeleine Violet. French. She was my French teacher. She's here this afternoon. And all the rest of you. I'm just really excited to see this. In a way, I miss the opportunity to be in Bookworks with a number of people. But one of the things I like about Zoom is that people can attend from all over. It's kind of fun. Anyway, so I know Andrea Watson is there, and I hope she can hear me. I'm sure she can. I wanted to start by thanking her. She's the publisher at Taos Press. About halfway through 2018, I sent her a manuscript. I knew her fairly well already. Andrea's nobody's fool, and she's pretty demanding. But she sent me an email back not long after that, and it was a qualified yes, but she had lots of ideas about what needed to be done, including a chapter that I had cut out because I didn't want to finish it. Anyway, the manuscript went through 2 major revisions because Andrea knows how to ask the right questions of a poet. So I'm really grateful to her for that. And also because at Taos Press, they do just beautiful books. So what I'm going to do here, before I start reading, I just clicked share screen, and I'm going to click and I'm going to put the cover up for just a minute. I'm assuming you can see that. Anyone's Son, poems by David Meischen. Taos Press does beautiful books, and this cover I'm particularly happy with because Andrea spotted this piece of art on the walls at our house. My husband Scott did this piece of art. The piece itself is done on two sides of translucent paper, but I got high resolution scans of both sides, and Andrea's amazing designer, I don't know how she did it, but she managed to use both sides in such a way that the image of the two men comes through and the image of the flowers and the lizards surrounding them comes through beautifully. So that's the cover of the book. Thanks to Scott, and he's here with us somewhere, and thanks to Andrea for that. And now I'm going to click stop share. And I want to start by reading a poem without really introducing it, other than just the title. And then I'm going to say a little bit about that and the title of the book, and then read some more poems. This poem is called How Close We Come to Unforgiving Surfaces. High beams, a country roadbed curving under moonlight, the afterburn of bourbon. Your lungs are drunk on oxygen, syllables of laughter tumbling out of you, out of him at the wheel, out the open window, stones skipping over water, the old Dodge skimming, airborne, the lift, the promise. By the way, there are occasionally lyrics, and I have trouble moving from words to singing. So when I mangle the tune from this Beatles song, forgive me. The old Dodge skimming, airborne, the lift, the promise, come together right now over me. Moonlight, crickets rub wing against wing, dashboard, windshield, high beams. The roadbed rushes over the rise, city asleep below. A curbed divider suddenly dead ahead. He yanks at the wheel, yanks again. The Dodge front axle wheelbase driver's side whumps against the curb, and you catapult, terror lifting you, an endless, weightless winging, no breath to measure rapture, until gravity remembers itself, remembers you, drops you in a heap where the visor tilts into the windshield. The Dodge flipped over, high beams glaring into dust. Beyond the sudden stillness among the scrub, cricket wings again. I'm here, I'm here. Against a voice deep inside you, your father like carved stone. A fool and his piper, he says, your payment is coming. Does he know where your eyes go when you look at the driver? How far you would follow? You crawl out the open window, stand into delicious night, a flutter in the bar ditch as of pages tossed out a window. Yesterday's Time magazine, the banner head that caught your eye, the homosexual in America. Face on the cover like a color negative, skin tones in neon pink, a face that might have been anyone's son. At cheekbones and hairline, a tumble of molecules, the breeze like a feather. Without a scratch, you hear your mother turning from the phone. She will make of the ruined Dodge something safe. No payment exacted. The piper you've danced to playing on without fee. A scratch. Your father poisons her words. Our boy's got marks on him. Behind you from the car, a voice, your driver's voice, his words slurred, off key. He say 1 and 1 and 1 is 3. Got to be good looking 'cause he's so hard to see. Overhead, a rustling and the shadow of an owl, thick-bodied, wings spread, mouse singing his death song. So that's a poem about 25 pages in, How Close We Come to Unforgiving Surfaces. I want to say a couple of things. Someone, when I was going to do a reading before, referred to this book as a memoir in poetry, and I would disagree. The poems are memory inspired, memory based. Late night after Halloween 1969, my best friend and I were coming back from a party in Austin. We'd had too much to drink, and he turned the car over, and we crawled out of it completely unmarked. That much is true. But when I was writing the poem, I remembered seeing this really strange cover from a Time magazine that was a profile on gays in America, homosexuals in America. So I went looking for it. And when I discovered that it was published either October 31st or November 1st, 1969, it just invited itself into the poem. And that brings me to, I want you to see it just briefly. Here it is. Amanda, help me. Is that visible? Okay, so that was the cover. And what struck me about it when I went and found it was that it's a photograph, and it looks kind of like a color negative. Maybe it is. I'm not sure how they distorted the covers, but I found it struck me as really interesting that the colors were so distorted, and that comes into the poem. Face on the cover like a color negative, skin tones in neon pink. And then the phrase that popped into my head was a face that might have been anyone's son. So the poem was written, it was published several years back. I wanted it for the book. My first choice, Scott Wigerman will laugh at me, I'm embarrassed to say, my first choice of a title for the collection was A Fool and His Piper, which also comes from this poem. Scott thought I had lost my mind, and I don't know if Andrea exactly agreed with him. She didn't like that title. And she might have been the one who suggested Anyone's Son. And one of the things I liked about that is I felt like I was putting together a group of poems that could represent someone who could have been anyone's son. This kid who grows up on a farm and eventually he admits to himself that he's gay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a story that could be anyone's. I see Stan Crawford there. Stan, you should wave. Stan Crawford and I think Goyo Candela is here. Both of them have written me, these are straight men. Both of them have written me saying that they could identify with the anguish, the adolescent anguish that they see in these poems, that it comes through. And I was really happy about that. Okay, enough said about that poem and the title. I want to go from there to the very opening poem, which is pretty close to being strictly memoir, strictly autobiographical. It's called A Spill from the Radio Flyer. I don't know if they make those anymore, but if you're too young to remember and they don't, a radio flyer was a red wagon. We had one. Also, I think there were scooters that were made by Radio Flyer. So this is the poem. Lucky fall, the doctor says. A slight cut, the lightest touch of a clean, sharp tip, the eyelid, not the eye. Nimble fingers, a suture kit will do the trick. A drop of Novocaine trembling at needle's tip. A scratch. This word spoken a decade later, as if to the boy alone. Mercutio speaking from a textbook page. A scratch. Immeasurable divide between the cut that grazes and the one that blinds, that kills. The magic the boy unreels, casting backward, rising each time unscathed. The scooter beside him, the eyelid merely perforated. A scratch. In the story, he tells himself, it's in his name, David, from the Hebrew for beloved. The boy David, invincible with sling and stone, sidestepping the javelin, the snares of a jealous king. But no matter, the world is rife with sharp points. Somewhere another stumble is coming, another spilling of blood. But here, now, he is safe. Stitches pull at the eyelid, the doctor tying neat little knots along the edges, fingers smelling of disinfectant, stainless steel, cigarettes. In the waiting room, the fish tanks burble, humming a single sustained fluorescent note, and on the back wall, leaping a blue marlin, unblemished, no sign of the lure that hooked him. I love the way the blue marlin came into the poem. There was the doctor in our hometown, probably he was the wealthiest person in town, and he had a giant stuffed marlin on the wall of the waiting room, which I would just stare at. I wanted to start with that poem. One of the things that came back to me over and over again in the writing of this, in the writing of the memoir I've worked on, also the short stories I write, is how much of a role chance and luck plays in all of our lives. I can point to at least 5 moments in my life, starting with when I fell into that prune sinisa shrub and just barely perforated my eyelid where it could have been fatal. But it wasn't. Dumb luck. At the same time, looking back, I knew, looking at this boy, that he won't get through unscathed, even if the scars coming are metaphorical. He's got some rough times ahead. So I started with that one. I want to read you next a poem called Fire at Midsummer. It's the only poem that I ever got into the Southern Review. I owe Scott Wiggerman for that too. He read a draft that I'd worked on very hard and wanted me to cut the first 13 lines, which I did. And then the Southern Review said they'd publish it. I want to read this one because it seems to me that we come formed to a certain extent, identity. I'm convinced I came gay. I didn't one day decide I'm going to be gay just to piss people off and have a hard life. I came that way, but I came onto a farm, and that farm shaped me in ways that I think are equally important to this day. Here's a farm poem, Fire at Midsummer. Even our names for the cows who gave us calves for sale and slaughter, who gave us milk and cream and butter, who quit mooing soon enough when we weaned their calves away from them. Even our names for them were blunt and uninspired, unmarked by attachments of the heart. The red cow, the little cow, Brindle. We called one of them the new cow for 15 years. And by the summer, the red cow lay down beneath the tree at noon and failed to get back up again to graze among the others. She was very old, the last of our grandfather's cows, blind in one eye as long as we had known her. Blinded when one of the Meischen brothers shot her with a BB gun, hit her in the eye, as if somehow this punishment would nudge her out of the slow, uncomprehending amble down the trail a cow is born to follow. He was wrong. For the rest of her life, she was just more skittish, and now she was dying, hunkered down inside herself, unmoved by our impatience, waiting out the end. Daddy took one look and headed for the gun closet. Afterwards, slung a heavy chain around the carcass and hooked it to the tractor, dragged her from beneath the tree and out into the bare, grazed over field beyond, issued blunt directives to the three of us, left us behind to finish up. We piled dried brush, scrap lumber, old fence posts over the red cow, and tended the fire, strange at midsummer. The winter brush burning odors of mesquite and huisach, the bed of ashes, embers that would smolder for days, burning her bones clean. That's one memory from the farm. Okay. The next poem I'm going to read, because I did a little bit of research for this one. This is about a life. I mean, it intersected with mine in elementary school and high school, about a life of someone who I think, like me, was born attracted to men and who did not deal with it, did not survive. It has one explicit phrase in it, but I think y'all can handle that. And this is a haibun. A haibun is written in prose. Initially, they were kind of like travelogues. Japanese writers of haibun traveling, they would record in prose, and then they would pause and insert a haiku, very short, reflective piece. This one has 3 of those. I'll pause for those, and most often a haiku is read twice, and they're very short, so I'll do that too, so you can reflect on that. It's called Taking Communion. I grew up in the Catholic Church, hence the title. An older boy sat beside me, the bus almost empty near the start of the route, seats before and behind unoccupied. He was in 6th grade, this altar boy. I was in 3rd. As the school bus droned along the county road, the altar boy leaned in my direction, his breath at my ear. Would I unzip? Would I show him my pecker? His words were soaked in ridicule, but beneath them I heard hunger. I made a deal. My zipper and then his, though we never got that far. His older sister, hearing our hushed voices, turned and told him to stop bothering me. He got up and moved to the back of the bus. Caliche dust in sunlight, taste of dirt. Caliche dust in sunlight, taste of dirt. One afternoon, years later, I pushed through double doors to the high school locker room, humming absently, walking through from the gym to the old brick classroom building, and there he was, the altar boy, the senior now, naked as a Greek statue, wrestling with a buddy fresh out of the showers. His dick was plump and succulent, nestled in glistening curls. His jockstrap on the lone bench, aroma of sweat. His jockstrap on the lone bench, aroma of sweat. At 20, he married a local girl. For years, he soaked himself in liquor, as if alcohol might drown desire. Cirrhosis killed the altar boy. He was 41. Funeral bells, communion wafer on a thirsting tongue. Funeral bells, communion wafer on a thirsting tongue. You can do a lot with Google. That's how I found out the facts of that last chapter. I knew this person had died, but I was able to figure out when and what age, etc. Okay, 327. Next one. I'm going to show you something. Just this is the last thing. If y'all will bear with me. Share screen. Here it is. Amanda, y'all can see that? Okay. The original draft of this poem was written in the 90s. When I was in my mid-40s, my marriage came apart, or I should say I dismantled my marriage. It was a very difficult time for me, for the woman I married, and for my sons. And I came across this photograph, which was taken when I was 17 years old, and I kept staring at it. And eventually wrote a poem, and many years later revised that again. And it's called, excuse me, Self-Portrait, age 17. I'll leave the photo up because that's what it's about. Pardon? Oh, and I'm going to point this one. where the arrow is, in the back, second from the left, that's me. Scott said he wouldn't have been able to pick me out. But I was 48 years old when I met Scott, so I changed a bit. Self-portrait, age 17. Clustered along the diving board, at ease in the camera's eye. 7 cousins, a flat backdrop of sky. 2 girls giggle sunward, skin smooth, flesh firm. Seeds of awakening tucked away. Tiny buds, tightly fisted inside hips and bellies, just beginning to curve. Beside them, 5 bare-chested boys, all gawkish grace, beginning to be men. Nestled beneath the fabric of their suits, blood-warmed, microscopic swimmers await the dark plunge toward fatherhood. Memory insists I stood here among him, this one, see him? Second from the left near the end of the board, oldest of the cousins assembled for a family reunion. Thin boy man, lost in a welter of cultish poses. I study him. He stands unsmiling, dreams unsmiling. His eyes take in the distance. He is out there somewhere, drifting. Who are you? I ask this impossible stranger. What's on your mind? I know it isn't me you're dreaming. Oops, where is share? Oh, there it is. Stop share. If you really observe closely, you'll notice there were more than 7 people in that photograph, but I left out the 2 who weren't first cousins because I figured I could do that in the poem. And one of the things that struck me, one of the reasons I chose the poem, I think at any point in our lives you could look back at a younger version of yourself and think, who was that? And I imagine myself, the 17-year-old version of me, would have been appalled if someone had told him about me at 45. So that's how that line came up. I want to read somewhere in my notes, I also say that others crept into the poem who could have been anyone's son. I had a cousin growing up 4 months older, and we were like polar opposites. Gary Meischen was the badass of the family, the badass of the community. He was known all over South Texas for that. And he didn't make it past 33. And you'll see why here. This is called, and I'm stealing from Hank Williams, Nobody's Sugar Daddy Now. The radio was playing Hank Williams when they found him. Steam hissing from the engine like dance hall smoke beneath the freeway lights. He got his first car at 16, took to driving west from town, 100 miles an hour across coastal flatland, straight into summer's 5 o'clock sun. Tires beneath him skimming a shimmer of watery silver. His laughter buffeted by hot wind, whipping through open windows as field hands turned from the harvest to shake their heads. Got pummeled by a jealous rival once, skull bones split beneath the left eye, laughed when the doctor said, stay on your back, give the bruising time to ebb, let the skull bones mesh again or risk blindness. Sneaked out for a drink instead, shot a game of pool when the ache beating beneath narcotic numbness gave way to nicotine's husky promise, bourbon's buttery warmth. Didn't imagine he'd make it to 40, riding a trajectory that felt predetermined. From his grandfather's razored wrists to the burst of blood inside his father's head, final as a kiss of skull bones against car frame, indifferent as the old oak tree biding its time along the farm road north of San Antonio, and years later, his own son asleep at the wheel, unseatbelted like his father. Like his father, perhaps dreaming something gentler than the brunt of bumper against hard wood, the instant of flight, the sudden darkening. I left myself out of the poem, but the reason I know about the car going 100 miles an hour driving west, I was in that car. I don't think I've ever been that scared in my life. And the laughter, the buffeting laughter, he was laughing at me because I was a weenie boy. Anyway, let's see, 334. I'm not going to read all the ones I had marked. I want to read one poem about the years when I was married, the years when I was father, the years when I was raising sons. I feel as if the 80s were consumed by fatherhood. If you've raised children, you know, as wonderful as it is, it takes up everything in you for about a decade. This was a couple of years ago. I was thinking about fatherhood and 3 different memories popped into my head, and I wove them into a poem called Fragments for a Triptych. And I won't tell you what the 3 images are, but I think you'll figure them out. It's in several parts, and I'll just say the numbers. 1, San Francisco's delicious chill, sand and swings and slides. Bosch by way of Dr. Seuss, your sons among these children in motion, their cries jangle like a fracas of grackles. 2, the odor lifts you out of your seat, pushes you up the aisle, your infant son leaking a trail of stink. Floor space by the door where you boarded the aircraft will have to do. 3, your fingers work the wing nut that holds the spare in place. You in your Italian suit beneath the van's raised hatch, your sons in the back seat, shimmering blacktop, cloudless sky. 4, retinas on hiatus, visual data, a scrim you look through, you drift into pure sound. Children at play, their noises carry you elsewhere. 5, automatic, automaton, unpin, unpin. The noxious diaper surrenders to an air sickness bag. 6, you drop back into yourself. This bench, this playground, muted circus music drifting from the carousel. How long were you gone? Seconds? Minutes? 7, again, you set the tire iron. One at a time, the lug nuts resist. Perspiration pools along the dam of your glasses, flows over. Salt sting and blinding sun. 8, your 3-year-old has disappeared among the scrambling children, their noises suddenly like silence. 9, forefinger and thumb, you insert a pin into the fresh diaper corner, click the point into place, scent of line-dried cotton. 10, panic itches at the edges of your vision, eyes sweeping the playground while memory lights on a moment in blow-up. A woman vanishes, movie magic abducting her. The camera stops, the actress steps away from gathered extras, the film rolls again. 11, a current moves along the neural pathways of your arm, restraint snapping loose at the elbow. Against the bright white day, your tire iron spins. From the windows of the van, your sons bear witness. 12, the playground swirls and does not stop, does not reveal the child, the name you have by heart. He did show up, but I can't tell you how many times that happened to me, especially in Golden Gate Park. There'd be like, it seemed like 300 kids, and suddenly I would think, where is Carl? Where is Jack? And then suddenly they would appear again, and I would be able to breathe again. Okay, it's 3:38. I'm going to skip ahead to a very serene, happy poem from later in the book, after Scott Wigerman arrived in my life. I want to read this one, and then I want some time for you to make comments or ask questions, and if there's time, I could read one or two more, but I feel like you've got a taste. This one from later in the life, and it's called Obad for Scott. And an Obad it's a mourning poem, not mourning as in grief, but mourning as in dawn. I wake to the quiet buzz of sunlight at the blinds, doze and wake inside a wash of later light, tender still, the bedroom's edges smoothed by shadows and nearsightedness, their gentle refusal of dividing lines between this and that, like the metabolic emanations, part you, part air, that warm me across the space between us, until I reach for glasses and rise into a day with edges, a cup of coffee for you. It's vapor, my reminder.